Yes, we must talk about that.
We don't discuss it.
We don't approve of independent sovereign states.
You don't approve.
We mean to stop them,
That's war.
if you will.
Well, I think we know how we stand. Burton, take this man. If he gives you any trouble, club him.
Now, they then come, and because they've grabbed him, this is a sovereign country, and they come and bomb them with knockout gas. Now, you see this in other films that have now come out, where they're throwing it in our face. Well, I'll talk about that after the break. The point is, order and trade. See, it's all order and trade, but they use trade, which they fix, to knock out their competition. It's not free market. They talk about the new order. No one can have planes. No one in the state, none of the people can, but this shadowy wings over the world. This global government, but it's not a government. They have all the power, and they're the Freemasons, and they're going to be running things. And then they come with non-lethal weapons and make you submit. And then he wrote nonfiction books about force drugging the public to submit, and he said that there's going to be a lot of wonderful and beautiful, I'll get his quote, it's in my book, a lot of wonderful and beautiful, valiant people that fight world order, but that we're just going to have to die. H.G. Wells wrote that in his book, The New World Order. This guy talks about how he's going to kill us all if we don't break up our families and submit.
From his Central Texas Command Center, deep behind enemy lines, the information war continues. It's Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network.
Take the film that came out a year or so ago, Serenity, showing how smart the writers of that piece are, obviously anti-New World Order. They discover that the government, the galactic government, of a bunch of control freaks claiming they're trying to create a wonderful utopia with all these social workers micromanaging you. They kill you if you don't submit immediately, but it's all for the greater good. They find out there's a planet where they, which Serenity's the name of the planet, that's off the charts because they killed everybody on it with this Prozac gas, and they even give the name of the molecule that is Prozac in the film, that they had this plan to make it a utopia, and it actually killed everybody, or 90-something%, and created the Reavers, a bunch of psychopaths that did survive. Well, in reality, that's what they're doing. 15% of the public on serotonin reuptake inhibitors, 10% of the kids on amphetamine-type drugs that burn out their brains. Aldous Huxley, whose brother ran the entire UN department on eugenics, openly said that they were going to legitimize eugenics, even though Hitler had given it a bad name, said they would force drug the public. Then they just passed New Freedom Initiative a year and a half ago for forced psychological testing and drugging. The drug companies say they'll now go from 15% on drugs to half. They're talking about making you take these. The fluoride does it in the water. I mean, major hundreds and hundreds of university studies I've read. There's no debating it. Again, Pulitzer Prize-winning books on World War II admit Hitler used it in his labor camps, his forced labor camps. And so H.G. Wells and a few others came up with these ideas, wrote nonfiction books titled The New World Order and others, saying they were going to do this. Then they made fiction movies like Things to Come in 1937, where they go in and dominate and take everybody over with their advanced technologies. And then after that, there's a utopia, and they set up their world government, and we go to the stars. You know, it's like looking at 500 years of human development. And after the Second World War, they form their world government, and they fix the planet. Well, what did the UN say? When it failed the League of Nations at the end of World War I, they said, well, now call it the United Nations. It was John D. Rockefeller involved in the founding of the League of Nations. They've had it on C-SPAN where David Rockefeller goes to the UN and gets awards. And I've got it on video from just a few years ago. What was it, in 2000, where they give him an award at the UN Business Council. Well, your grandfather helped found what became the UN, and you've been the greatest friend of the UN. And Prince Charles and his father, Prince Philip, all push it, and they're doing it. And they've got all these well-meaning saps, like they did in, the French Revolution in the 1700s, and like they did in other places. They get the general public. We're revolutionaries for freedom. We're going to take down the rich. We're going to bring liberty. But what they bring is total tyranny. Except in one case, the U.S. where for over 100 years they helped foment the revolution, but it got away from them, and the framers got away from them and turned against them and did do more good than others. And one nation with 4% of the population ended up with half the wealth of the world because there was liberty. And where there is liberty, there is plenty. And there is freedom. So that's what happened. And it was because America was predominantly a Christian nation, and those morals and those ideals created a tree with a lot of fruit. And so they've come back in, they've taken over. Since 1913, they've turned us as an engine against the world to do their dirty work, to take down nation after nation. Then the U.S. gets demonized globally and gets the blame. The UN says we've got to come in with a liberal world government to counter the evil right-wing U.S. Anglo-American British version of it. And then, of course, I told you this 10 years ago because I read mainstream documents, which were available, and later even the Australian papers picked it up, saying world government, which way? The liberal-loving one or the evil right-wing one? See, now they don't deny there's a world government. They say, well, we need the loving people to get control of it. It's a false choice. They're not saying you can or can't have world government. They're saying, don't worry, there's now a world government, but there's a struggle now between who will control it. Oh, it's controlled, just like both political parties are controlled. And they create a Royal Institute of International Affairs, a Council on Foreign Relations. Every European or Western government, the U.S. Canadian government, has these councils with the heads of the banking, the heads of media, the heads of academia, the heads of science, all the key heads, the key lawyers, all the heads of the major guilds, the head of the National Association of Governors, National Association of Lawyers, they're all members. There's 4,200 and something in the U.S., over 100 members in Canada, several hundred members in England, and the Royal Institute of International Affairs, and they manage and guide it, and they tell them in these meetings, their minutes are public now, a lot of them have been brought forward, we're going to set up world government to love the people, for global hunger, to help. Meanwhile, they're putting sterilization pathogens and chemicals in the vaccines. They're involved in genetic engineering. All of it. They're waging war against us. But they have this sick excuse that it's all for the people and they're doing a great job and they're bringing this utopia. And look what they brought us. War and destruction. 200 million dead last century. We'll be right back. So basically, we have 4,000-year-old universities, which are intelligence agencies, whose symbol is the all-seeing eye of the pyramid, dominating a mass of slaves beneath them, that sell the outer court members who serve them that they're building a grand utopia. They speak to people's personal power trips, their control freak natures. And they openly, in the major textbooks for social workers, say the family's a disease, it's a threat to the state. Their plan is to break up the family, as I said, one-child policies, forced drugging, every move, every purchase you make under surveillance. It's basically already here. A nightmare world is what they built. And if you read in Council on Foreign Relations bi-monthly report, Foreign Affairs, they openly say the House of World Order will be built on blood. They openly say, H.G. Wells said they're going to have to kill a lot of valiant, beautiful people. He uses that term. He knows a lot of valiant revolutionaries who will find out what they're building and fight against them. And it's just this arrogant, elitist attitude of, fine, you will die. And you look at what these people have built, it's horrible. But it's a sick religion of total control. It is a disgusting religion of dehumanization.